Hello and welcome to the first part of my sort of recommendations of the monthly range. Now originally I was going to pick one story from each 10 of the first 50, so say number 1 to 10 I would pick the Marion Conspiracy. You get the idea, but I decided because there are so many stories I like from the first 50, wouldn't it be nice to do some of my favourite stories from the first 50? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. This series isn't going to be frequent, it's not going to be each week you're going to get a part of this series. Maybe in a couple of months' time you'll get 51 to 100. Now I haven't exactly listened to all of the 51 to 100s, I've only listened to 6, which is really bad. So in a couple of months' time hopefully I've listened to a few more of them, and then I can carry on this series of videos. Some stories I've put on the list because either they are an introduction to a character, or I've just put on there because they're quite unique in their own right, and stories I wouldn't exactly pick, and I'll go into detail which stories they are. So without further ado, let's look at my first recommendation. So the first recommendation is obviously The Sirens of Time. Now this isn't one of my favourite stories, it's I've just put it on the list because it's the first big finish. Because it's quite an average story, the cliffhangers don't get resolved, but still it's a nice way to start a big finish, and it's essential because it is the first big finish Doctor Who story out there. So that's the reason why Sirens of Time is on the list. It's just sheerly because it's the first big finish, really. So there we are, Sirens of Time. Next up we have the Fearmonger. Now this is, Sylvester McCoy's Doctor and Ace put in the John Pertwee era. This is what the Defectors should have been. Absolutely love this. It reminds me of the Meager, and if you know me, the Meager is my favourite big finish story out there. Fantastic story, political, and really an interesting idea. And I love it because it's John Pertwee-esque. I think that's the reason why I love it, because it's very much a Pertwee story with Sylvester McCoy and Ace. And I think this is probably my favourite 7th Doctor and Ace audio out there, partly because I don't think Ace has been captured right on audio. I think she's playing it too young, and not like her TV counterpart. So I think that this story really gets Ace right, and I think that's why I like this story, because it's the best sort of representation of Seven and Ace for me. Next up we have the Marion Conspiracy. Now I call this the Colin Baker master plan story. This is when Colin Baker's Doctor began to change. This is when we start to see the softer side of the 6th Doctor. Now this is the introduction to Evelyn Smythe, who is an absolutely fantastic big finish companion. Absolutely love her to bits. She's wonderful, and her and Colin Baker just get on. That you wouldn't think an old lady would work with the 6th Doctor, but she really does tone the 6th Doctor down, and this is when the master plan begins. I love this story. It's a nice little pure historical, and right from the off there's great sort of banter between the 6th Doctor and Evelyn, and that obviously carries on throughout all the stories they're in. So this is a very good story, really do like it, and everyone says that the Marion Conspiracy is a fantastic story, and it is definitely, or else it wouldn't be on the list. The Genocide Machine, the introduction to the Daleks to big finish. Now this is quite an interesting story. I do like it, but again, this is a story what I wouldn't really recommend, but I'd recommend it because it is the first Dalek story. The Dalek voices are really strange in this. It sort of reminds me of the Day of the Dalek sort of voices. And it's the first of the Dalek Empire, which continued from the Apocalypse element to the Mutant phase and Time of the Daleks. They all link in some way, I can't remember what way. But it's an interesting one, not one of my particular favourites from the first 50, but I just thought I'd put it on the list because it is the introduction to the Daleks, and McCoy's fantastic in this, and McCoy and the Daleks, you can't go wrong because he's got some fantastic Dalek stories. The Spectre of Lanyon Moor. Now this is probably the closest thing we're probably going to get to have the interaction between the 6th Doctor and the Brigadier. Obviously we've got Dimensions in Time, and I think, I can't remember what the book's called, but this is the closest we'll actually have a full adventure with the two sparring off each other. Now I really do like this story. I think it has some creepy elements with Evelyn walking in, along a path with the fog and this creature lurking over. It's great until you come to the final part, when it's just a bit of a mess really. The ending is what lets this story down. I love the build up to it, but just the ending really lets it down. And I would just get it for Colin in the Brigadier, really. The story's alright until the ending, as I've said. But yeah, it's good. It's a good story. So we have my favourite Sylvester McCoy audio, The Fires of Vulcan. Now I love this story because it's like The Visitation, but it plays with history. That this sort of, the Doctor interferes with history, and this is what happened. It's basically the 7th Doctor's version of the Fires of Pompeii. And I like this story, but it's the Doctor and Mel are separate, so there are 2 stories going on, which I really do like. And of course, there's that impending doom of the volcano erupting. So you've always got that sort of tension there, which I really do like. And McCoy, I would say, is fantastic. I love the darkness to him in this story. It's just brilliant. I love the Fires of Vulcan. If you want to know more about the stories what I've mentioned, I will put a link to the review in the descriptions, or just check out my Big Finish playlist and you can have a look at audios I've reviewed from the first 50, and the Fires of Vulcan is one I've reviewed. So if you want to know more about the Fires of Vulcan, check that review out. Okay, Storm Warning, the 8th Doctor's introduction. Now this is quite a good story. It carries on from where the TV movie left off, and it sort of starts off the 8th Doctor and the Charlie Pollard arc. Now if you're going to listen to the 8th Doctor adventures from Big Finish, I suggest start with Storm Warning, because it obviously starts off with the Charlotte Pollard arc and it carries on right through till The Girl Who Never Was. So I think it's quite important that you listen to this just to know the background of Charlie, because throughout her Month Deranged stories, there are references to other 8th Doctor adventures, and this is quite an important one because it gives Charlie's background story. But overall, the story itself is pretty average. It's your standard alien sort of invasion with a twist. It plays with history, which I do like, and introduces, the Vortisaurs, what was sort of carried on, because the 8th Doctor sort of trilogy's had a bit of an arc, but, we had the Vortisaur in the first 5, was it? 5 stories, then we had the trying to get to Singapore, that sort of stuff going on, and then you had Zagreus and then the Divergent arc, and what have you. Then you had the Doctor returning to our universe. So the 8th Doctor has sort of different sort of eras in a way. So there we are, Storm Warning. I'm also going to pick some recommendations from the 8th Doctor stories, because it's only fair. Some of my highlights from that bunch. So let's go and have a look at some of the highlights. Dawn of Orion, the Cybermen introduction to Big Finish. Now I absolutely love this story. I prefer it to Storm Warning, to be honest. It sort of reminds me of the Troughton story, with it sort of being base under siege, and I really do like this story. It's probably my second favourite Cyberman audio, first being probably Return to Telos. I do love Return to Telos and I need to review that, but that's another thing really, I suppose. Great story, love Sword of Orion. Cybermen are brilliant in this, really do like it, because they're lurking in the shadows and I like that. Very 60s sort of Cybermen. Obviously it's an invasion Cyberman there. But yeah, fantastic story. Minuet in Hell, quite a controversial audio. Now, the reason this is sort of on the list is A, because it's the 8th Doctor and Brigadier, and I think this is the closest sort of interaction we are obviously going to get with these two, sadly. But this story isn't a fan favourite. It's quite messed up, it's quite dark in the wrong reasons. It's not dark as in, oh, it's a good story, it's dark because it's very odd, and I'm not going to describe it. Best way of describing it is Texas Demons. That sums it up really, Texas Demons. You've got people doing very bad southern accents, but I actually do enjoy it, don't shoot me. I think it's quite a weird and wonderful tale. Not the best by any means 8th Doctor adventure, but it's certainly one of the quirky ones out there. And it's just great to hear the 8th Doctor and the Brigadier together. Blood Tide. Now this is a really good story, the only Silurian audio out there, which is a real shame because they are fantastic and they've really managed to replicate the 1970s Silurians, and if you know me, Doctor and the Silurians is one of my favourite stories of all time, so of course this is going to be on the list. And I like that this story plays around with evolution, and of course it's got Charles Darwin, who is renowned for the theory of evolution, and the Silurians have a really interesting twist on evolution on this. If you've listened to the story you'll know, and of course this was my first Big Finish story, so of course it's going to be on the list. And we get to see the Merca redeemed, and obviously we don't laugh at them because obviously they are left to our imaginations, so it's great. So Blood Tide, absolutely fantastic. Now, Project Twilight, one of my favourite audios of all time. Now this, I have to say, is probably my favourite Sixth Doctor audio. I absolutely love it. I love the dark twist at the start, and of course, I think this is the first story to reference Zagreus, from what I remember, I think. I just love that it's dark, and it sort of plays with, the Sixth Doctor is put in a dark place. And it's interesting to see how the Sixth Doctor reacts to it, because obviously the great vampires are in it. And it's definitely a great way to kickstart the Project series. I'm a huge fan of the Project series. So it's great because it sort of carries on from where you get more of a backstory for the State of Decay with the great vampires and the Time Lords at war. So it's great for that aspect. And it's just a really dark story. And I love it. I absolutely love Project Twilight. Again, check out my review in more detail for Project Twilight. Cold It, the introduction to Klein, who becomes a prominent figure for the Seventh Doctor in later audios. Obviously, we will reach her later on in the monthly range. But I do like this story, but it sort of plays with history, sort of a parallel universe if the Nazis did win World War II, which is very an interesting idea. And it has some great cliffhangers. I think part 2's probably one of my favourites from this story, if I remember. So I really do like that this story plays around with history. As you probably can tell, I'm quite interested in sort of stories that flip history upside down. So yeah, it's really good, and it's a great introduction to Klein, and of course it has David Tennant in, who plays a Nazi. What more do you want from a story? Of course, the Chimes of Midnight was going to be on the list. A fantastic 8th Doctor adventure. Not my personal favourite 8th Doctor adventure. That's still yet to be seen in this video. So it's fantastic, it's dark, it's perfect. I think the perfect time to listen to a story is Halloween or Christmas Eve, because it just has that creepy factor, and the clock in the background just constantly ticking. Definitely fantastic. It's Rob Sherman, of course it's going to be good. He wrote Dalek. So yeah, you know what you're going to get with this story. Everyone raves about this story, and I've reviewed it, so if you want to know more about this story, check that review out. Now, Season of Fear is my personal favourite 8th Doctor adventure. I absolutely love this story because it makes a classic villain what isn't a fan favourite into an absolutely fantastic monster. Now, I like that this story, is it's like quite movie-esque, but each part we're in a different location. That we go from Rome and Britain to medieval, then we go into the 17th century, and what I find quite interesting with the early 8th Doctor adventures is it's very cult sort of related. That when you went in Hell we had the Hellfire Club, and then in this story we had another cult going on, and Stones of Venice as a cult. So the first 8th Doctor sort of adventures are sort of very cult orientated, and I really do like this story that it's constantly changing. Each part is in a different location, which I find refreshing. And Paul McGann just works off brilliantly with a villain called Grail. And I absolutely love this. Love it to bits because it's sort of very timey-wimey. That, Grail is meeting the Doctor for, the last time, when this is the Doctor meeting Grail for the first time. So it's sort of like that. And it's just brilliant. I haven't reviewed this, which I'm surprised why I haven't actually reviewed it, because I need to. Just to express my love in more detail, because I absolutely love Season of Fear. Neverland. Now this is a story I'm not a fan of personally. I find it too long, really. The reason why this is on the list is because it's the background story to Zagreus, the better half of Zagreus. Spoiler, Zagreus isn't on the list, sadly, because it's too much of a mind fudge. And it's not a best representation of Big Finish. Neverland is quite a good introduction to Zagreus, but it's not a story what I'm a fan of, really. It's a great character piece for the 8th Doctor and Charlie, really. And it's got Romana in it, and it's alright, really. It's nothing standout. Spare parts. What can I say about it? It's the genesis of the Cybermen, and the Cybermen are my favourite sort of villains, especially the 60s Cybermen, and it's quite interesting to see the 5th Doctor deal with this, because of course this was gonna be a TV story but wasn't made, and of course the Lost Stories weren't around, so of course they made it into an actual story. and it's quite interesting and it's quite horrifying, the actual story of the events, what happened in it. Of course you know the outcome, but it's definitely got some dark moments, really has got some dark moments, and I do like this. I've re-listened to this twice. First time I was like, it's alright, but since re-listening to it, I found a new love for it. It's absolutely fantastic. Spare parts. Jubilee, the inspiration for Dalek. Another Rob Sherman story enters the list. Now, I have to say, I prefer Jubilee to Dalek. Colin Baker is absolutely fantastic in this, and I think that this does have some quite deranged ideas. I'm not going to spoil what some of those ideas are, but it's definitely an interesting story. If you're a fan of Dalek, then obviously you're going to love this, and it's just fantastic. Words can't describe how good it is, and it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, I can't describe it, words aren't good enough for it, because it's that good. Next up we have the second story in the Project series, Project Lazarus. Now this is definitely an interesting story. It carries on from where Project sort of Twilight left off, with the Doctor trying to find an antidote for this virus. Now Colin Baker's in the first two parts, and then it changed over to Sylvester McCoy being the main Doctor in it. I'm not going to reveal the twist because Colin Baker does interact with Sylvester McCoy's Doctor in this. Now I love the first two parts, particularly because it really does challenge the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn's relationship at the ending. Of course, that is more explored in Arrangements of War, which I haven't listened to yet, but I've still got it. I've got it. I haven't listened to it yet, but I know that it explores that. So yeah, I think this is a great story. It's not as good as Project Twilight, but it's nonetheless, it's still fantastic, and is quite a cracking story for Project Lazarus. Now we have the last story from the Villains trilogy, Master. Now this is a fantastic character piece for Geoffrey Beevor's Master. And I absolutely love it. I mean, part 3 is particularly one of my favourite, it's probably my favourite of the story, because it reveals the Doctor and the Master's past. It goes back to when they were back on Gallifrey. So that's very interesting, and I do like that it sort of explores that element of the show. So yeah, McCoy's dark in this, and Geoffrey Beevers is on fine form. I'm not going to say any more about this. It's just an utterly brilliant story. I have reviewed this, if I remember right. Yeah, I think I have reviewed it. So if you want to know more about Master, check out that review. So there we have my recommendations for the first 50. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have found it useful, then thank you that you like the recommendations. Sorry if I've been a bit quick over some of them, because I feel like there are so many I can't really go in depth, because otherwise it will be quite a long video otherwise if I do like 2 minutes on each audio. So hopefully I can continue doing this series. Maybe in the next couple of months we will have 51 to 100, where I will look at my favourites from that span of audios, and then etc. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, which will be a review of The Ghost in the Machine.